And here we go. Can you guys all see this? Great. And if something, I mean, just unmute yourself if something is unclear or you can't see, just let me know. And the other thing is, if people want to write stuff, I'm going to put the chat over here so I see it. But if you have a question while I'm talking, just type it in caps so I see it, and I'll try to answer. And Kim, Steve, or whoever, just let me know that you have a question so I can address it. So Tiny Habits is this fabulous book. And it was recommended to me by my therapist. She said, you really should read this book. It's really great. I was like, okay. And I heard about it through some other channels, and the premise of doing something tiny as a habit sort of struck me as completely impractical and unnecessary. Telling somebody to go and practice one measure of a piece every day seems kind of ludicrous, to be honest, right? It's like, nah, that's not going to get me to learn my jewelry pieces. But I have to say that after reading the book, the ideas presented by BJ Fogg, Dr. BJ Fogg, I think, are so wonderful, and in some cases really, shattering dogmas and perception, that I think I added it to the curriculum in the class, and I want to share it with you as like the first step. So here's the first thing that he said that sort of really stuck with me. If you can see the first quote up here. The assumption is this: if we give people the right information, it will change their attitudes, which in turn will change their behaviors. I call this the information action fallacy. Information alone did not transform your life. What the heck is he talking about? Anybody, jump in. Why is information alone not enough? Why but learning about something is not actually going to make us do it? Kim, thoughts?
I mean, you kind of just said it, like you have to actually take the information and do something with it, not just take it in.
But how many times do we think that just because, we sat in a class for a whole semester and I, taught you guys so many tools, that just because you understand the tools and they're helpful would be enough for you to use them? Like, how many times that equation just doesn't work properly? We understand something, but it doesn't actually carry out to be an action that we do. Like, for example, let's take sight reading. Like, most of my students say, we need to practice sight reading, and yet nobody does it. The understanding that it's important does not necessarily mean that you're going to go out and actually engage in the behavior. And I've never seen it articulated this clearly before. I mean, information action fallacy. The fact that we understand something does not necessarily mean we're going to do something about it. So that was the first quote that caught my attention. And then the second one, which to me was even more radical, is what's here. And I think most of us believe this: if only we were better people, we wouldn't have failed. We just need to get our act together and pull ourselves by the bootstraps and do better, right? And Fogg says, nope, sorry, not right. We are not the problem. Our approach to change is. It's a design flaw, not a personal flaw. So what he's basically saying is that the reason why we're not sight reading is not because there's something wrong with our motivation level, our intelligence, our willpower. There's nothing wrong with us. There's something wrong with the design, with the way that we put this action into our schedule or into our routine or into our lives. That the problem is not with a character flaw, the problem is a design flaw. All right, so did somebody jump in and tell me how radical do you think the statement is, or is it not radical at all? Or how many of us keep thinking that there's something wrong with what we're doing, or we're lacking willpower, or there's something wrong with us, instead of thinking, wait, oh, it's a design issue? Anybody?
I definitely just assume that it's a willpower issue.
So tell me, like, what do you think is the problem? Like, if you had more willpower, you would have done it, but because you don't have enough willpower, you don't?
Yeah, like basically you're saying the design issue is that you just don't fit it into your schedule appropriately or something. But I would automatically go to, well, if I thought it was important enough, I would just fit it in somehow. Like, it's on me.
So we're going to see that we're going to see in a second like why he's referring to it as a design flaw. But if you take only one thing from this, this mini talk here, is the problem is that information by itself, or even a helpful tool, is not enough to get us to change something. And two, if we create the proper design for it, if we create the proper place for it and proper opportunity for it, we're actually going to see change happen. So what the heck is he talking about? I think that learning, when we deal with performance habits, and going on stage or learning a piece, it's really a set of habits, right? So something like how we practice is a habit, right? We start maybe with a warm-up, then we maybe run through the piece, then we look at problem areas. You guys who did the course with me already, you know that I usually talk about the practice protocol and how you break down a piece into, the emotion and the structure and the technique, and you have a basic routine, and that's a habit, right? How we talk to ourselves is a habit. Do we encourage ourselves, we're going to do great, or we tell ourselves of everything is going to go wrong? Definitely belong in the second camp. Technical habits, how we are moving our hands on the instrument. These are all habits and routines. If you can see here below, I put some examples of good habits and not so good habits. So doing run-throughs before a performance is obviously a good habit. Not doing run-throughs is not a good habit, and so on and so forth. So what I'm going to do is in the upcoming minutes, I'm going to talk about the tools and habits as interchangeable. So for example, doing an emotional analysis of the piece is a tool, but it's also a habit. If you get used to doing it repeatedly, it becomes something that is integral to your practice. So the point of this slide here is just to reiterate the fact that everything that we're doing with music is a habit. And habits can be reinforced and habits can be broken. So I'm going to take you to the, I'm going to jump to the revolutionary part of what this guy is saying, just so we get straight to the point. Can you guys see this? Yeah, so what is this? This is Dr. Fogg's behavior model. On the bottom, you see one axis, easy to do, hard to do. And he calls this axis the ability. So let's say if you have to play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, that is easy to do, right? If you have to do Sibelius Violin Concerto, not so easy to do. Maybe if you're Anne-Sophie Mutter, then it's easy. But for most of us, we would associate certain pieces with being easy and certain pieces with being difficult. Maybe going on stage and playing for your family is easy. Going Carnegie Hall stage, more challenging. Every activity is going to land somewhere on this axis between something that is easy and something that is difficult to do. The other axis is motivation, and motivation moves from we are not eager to do something, we're not engaged in it, and something that we are very engaged in doing. So let's say something like sight reading, most people are not that motivated to go practice sight reading, so their motivation is going to be very low. If you assign Rachmaninoff Third Piano Concerto to somebody and they really love the piece, their motivation is going to be very, very high because they're eager to learn the piece. So what Fogg starts by saying is that these two guys come together and there's sort of a symbiotic relationship between them. If something is easy to do, let's take Twinkle Twinkle, something is easy to play, it's not requiring a lot of motivation to play, it's going to land here. Let me take one of these. Oh, no. Yeah, it moves. Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star is going to end up here. It's going to happen. It's going to happen above the action line. Can you see that? Now, if I want to play Rachmaninoff Third, but it's really hard to do and I don't have the technical skill, it's going to end up here under the action line. So everything that we are engaging in is going to land us either in this area, not going to happen, or in this area, going to happen. You with me so far? Yeah, just check. Great. So here are examples. When I got to Juilliard, my first assignment was to learn Chopin Third Piano Sonata. Didn't happen. It was relatively difficult to do, and even though I was super motivated to impress my teacher, I just couldn't get it together. It didn't happen. 3 months later, she gives me Prokofiev 6 piano sonata. It happens within 4 weeks. It's very difficult. I'm very motivated to do it. It happens. But I can't tell you why. I can't tell you why one piece was a no-show and the other piece was like, learn it in 4 weeks. Same thing happens later. I decide I'm going to learn this really crazy recital program with like 4 etudes and like Scriabin third piano sonata, and I diligently get to the practice room. Don't learn the program. Why? Because it was very difficult to do. And I guess I wasn't that motivated to do it. At the same time, when I start shuffle, and now shuffle is 30 pieces per concert that we have to prepare, very difficult to do, but I'm super motivated to do it. It happens. So the first step of this talk is to understand that everything that we are engaging in is a combination of these two elements of our ability and our motivation. We'll explore what that means in a second. But to me, where Fogg really steps out of the crowd with his model and sort of made me stop in my tracks is with this element, a prompt. Anybody knows what a prompt is? Lauren, if I ask you what a prompt is, what do you think it is?
It's like something that you say. It could be like a question or something that initiates just like thought, I guess.
So something that initiates something, like you're told to, when you get the prompt, like you get a notification on your phone that it's time to go to the class or time to do something, you know something is about to happen. It sends you a reminder that action needs to happen. And what Fogg is saying, and this really made me stop in my tracks, is that without a prompt, nothing happens. And it doesn't matter how hard or easy it is, and it doesn't matter how much motivation you have, it will simply not happen. I'm going to give you examples. The reason why I learned 30 pieces for a concert with shuffle was that because there were 5 other people looking at me to do the task. There was a concert date. There were contracts. There were so many prompts that forced me to get past the challenge, my low level of motivation, and get it to happen. When you guys learn your jury program, what's the prompt? Jessica, what's the prompt when you have a jury at the end of the semester?
Passing.
Huh?
Passing.
Passing is, well, passing I would say is motivation. Like you want to pass, so you have a high level of motivation because you want to. The prompt itself is what? It's the place and the date when you're going to play. Do you understand? So
Yeah.
if there was no prompt, if I told you, Jessica, at the end of the semester, you're going to have to play something, but I don't know exactly when it's going to be, at what time, and maybe it will happen, maybe not. Are you still going to practice? Thank you very much. And that, for me, that made me stop in my tracks, because that to me was shut the door. It's not about motivation, and it's not about how easy or hard something is. It's about the fact that we're going to be held accountable at some point in time to actually doing it. So raise your hand if you think this is revolutionary, thing like, okay. I think it's revolutionary. For me, this was like, whoa. So let's do some example just so you see how this model works exactly. So he gives the example of scrolling in bed. Scrolling in bed is easy to do. You don't need to have a lot of motivation. It happens. Tidying the desk, maybe not so difficult to do. Maybe you're not that motivated, but also it's going to happen because it's easy. Practicing, it really depends on whether your teacher told you have to play the piece next week in area. That's going to make you practice, right? So again, we bypass how difficult it is or your motivation. You have to answer to the prompt. Yeah, I'm getting into the problems here. So before I do that, does this make sense? Does anybody have any questions about this model? Can you already see? Yeah, Kim.
I think for me, it's hard to, I get confused on what's motivation and what's the prompt. Like the motivation is like the end goal, or the prompt and the prompt are the details, like the date you have to do it by, kind of thing.
You got it. Yes.
Okay.
So if we go back to the examples I gave you before, the thing to say it more clearly. I'm going to take the Leeds piano competition that I never showed up for as an example. There was a list of about 15 pieces I needed to learn. So ability, it was difficult to do, right? It was something that it was a lot of work. Even though I was motivated to do it, I guess I wasn't motivated enough. And the prompt was vague. The prompt, even though there was a competition at the end of it, I didn't set deadlines for myself to learn the pieces in sequence. So when the time came and it was 3 months before the competition, I still haven't learned all of the rep that I needed to learn. So it was a design failure. It wasn't that I was lacking motivation. I wanted to do it. But again, to reiterate what Fogg is saying, the problem was with the prompt. The prompts were not set properly to get me to engage in the action. So I'm going to take you to the next step with Fogg's work, and that is creating a recipe. And what he calls a recipe is based on 3 things. An anchor moment. An anchor moment is something that is already in your schedule. So let's say you know that you're going to end up in the practice room at some point during the day. So that's your anchor moment. The tiny new behavior is something that you attach to the anchor moment. So let's go back to the sight reading. After I practice, I'm going to engage in a tiny behavior. I'm going to sight read 1 line. And then the third step is actually, clap for yourself and say, good job, you did it. So if you look at, the way toddlers learn how to walk, the anchor moment is, they're already engaging in an activity. Tiny new behavior is making another step, and everybody claps for them for making those baby steps for actually standing. If you look at something, even if we look at run-throughs, the anchor moment would be, I know that I need to go on stage. The tiny new behavior saying I need to, get more and more people into the run-through, the celebration, people clapping at the end. So really any new behavior can be incorporated with a recipe, whether it's sight reading or, playing from memory or tapping or meditation. Everything can be broken into these 3 steps of choosing an anchor moment that is already there in your schedule, adding a tiny amount of the new behavior you want to incorporate, and then engaging in some sort of celebration. And we can break that down in a second. What does that have to do with the model we just talked about? Come on. So the anchor moment is the prompt, right? Because if you're already in the practice room, adding something to that is pretty simple, right? So that's the prompt. The tiny new behavior goes in ability, because maybe you don't feel like sight reading, for the next hour to improve your skills. That's too much. That's too hard to do. But if you tell yourself, I'm just going to sight read 1 line, that's much more manageable, right? The motivation, I guess, is the part where you're engaging in the activity because you think it's good for you, right? Like if you're going to practice sight reading, it's because you think sight reading is going to help you, or because if you're doing meditation, it's because you think you're going to benefit from it. So I think the motivation sort of takes care of itself. But that third part that he talks about, the shine or celebrating their behavior, is something that I think that we are, as musicians, we really fall short of. We think that most of the things that we're doing should be taken for granted, right? Do you clap for yourself after practicing, Kim? Like, do you go like, yay, I practiced, or yay, I played my scales, or yay, I sight read? We take that as something that should be taken for granted. Like all of our fellow musicians are doing this. It's ludicrous to celebrate these small steps. And what Fogg says, and again, I think it's kind of revolutionary, is that no new behavior can be incorporated with us feeling good about incorporating it. So what are some examples of shine? He talks about, giving yourself thumbs up, tap on the shoulder, say, heck yes, whatever feels authentic to you. And he actually, in the book, he has like pages and pages and pages of ways that people can celebrate, making those little changes, whether, it's verbal, whether it's physical. But again, I think it's a part of that recipe that we all fail. Like even when a student comes in, think about, we're all teaching, right? A student comes in and they did their homework, we go like, you know, we're not going to throw a party for them. They just did what they were supposed to do, right? And yet if you want them to keep on doing their homework, you want them to keep on practicing, it's really important. You go like, good job, you know, you learned the piece, good for you, in an authentic way, not in a, you know, smarmy way, but in an authentic way that really encourages them to keep on in that behavior. Okay, so I'm going to take a breath for a second. Like, does what I'm telling you right now sound interesting, not interesting, sort of obvious, not obvious? Lauren, where does it sit with you, this information?
So I don't know, because like as soon as you said that, like the only, I guess, like argument I could think of for it is that like when you practice something or like you do something new, wouldn't the reward be like getting better or like getting stronger at like what you wanted to do? Because I feel like this is like a way of like bringing something from the outside, like if you pat yourself on the shoulder or say good job. But like when I practice, at least for me, I think the reward is like, okay, like I actually like this sounds a lot better. So like now I feel good.
So that's your reward. I think when I first looked at it, I was thinking it's not practical for musicians because most of the tasks that we're dealing with are monumental. Like learning a piece of music is not something that you can do with a tiny step, right? You know, if you're learning Sibelius concerto, it's a long haul to learn it, right? That's part one. Part two, as trained musicians, we already established our habits. You already know what your cycle is. You know, I'm going to go into the practice room. There's an anchor moment. You know you're going to engage in practicing in it. You know that you're going to get better at the end. The model is already working in itself. I'm using this model because I think that when it comes to specifically to MPA, to musicians' performance anxiety, he's showing us something that I have not seen before. So let me dive into that. Let's for a second assume that we're going on stage with Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Okay, and see what happens. There's a prompt because we have to go on stage on Tuesday at 8 to play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. But is it easy or hard to do? For a trained musician, this is not difficult to do, right? It's something easy. How much motivation do we need to do it? Well, it's easy. It doesn't require much. So where is our MPA going to be? Is it going to be high or low? It's going to be low. Now, let's say that you're going to have to go and play Ravel's Tsigan. Okay, still same concert, Tuesday at 8. How easy or difficult it is to do? Hard, right? Way hard, yeah. Hard to do. I love the piece, but now what happened to my MPA level? It's going higher, right? Because it's more difficult to do, and even if I'm motivated to do it, it can be a problem. And that to me is where in music education, I think we really got it wrong. And tell me if you agree with me or disagree. I think what I'm saying is explosive. I think that we constantly insist on making things difficult because that's a basic value that we have. So, you know, when a kid plays Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, and they just get the notes, they get accolades because they play the notes. But as a mature musician, you need to hit all of the notes. You play them all in tune with the right style, with the good sound, with expressivity. The list keeps going and going and going. So what did we do to the task? We made it kind of impossible to ever achieve. The motivation, for the most part, is external, right? The motivation is coming from, I have to play the jury, or I have to, you know, to show up for my lesson with something learned. For us as adults, we need to satisfy some sort of standard when we perform in front of our colleagues, so we don't, you know, we look professional, right? So there is fear as motivation more than something, oh, I want to share, you know, the beauty of Ravel's music. And so I think what this model did for me was to say, stop. We're going about this completely the wrong way. First of all, let's choose pieces that are not over here in this corner, in the hard to do corner. Let's choose pieces that are somewhere in the center, that we feel are maybe not easy to do, but are not taking us to the edge of our ability and are not going to put us in a place that we feel we don't want to be challenged in public on, if that's a way to say it. let's use internal motivation instead of external motivation, meaning I really love Ravel's Tzigan. I really want to share it with people. So I'm going to go on stage with the desire to share it, and not from the desire to be ranked as the best violinist that ever lived, or I'm not going to be ranked against the, the Gideon Kramer performance of Tzigan. Do you see what I'm doing? What am I doing? Anybody? Jessica, what am I doing?
You're like making things sort of achievable, not like they're still hard to do, but you're changing the way the like ability and motivation is sort of like ranked. It's ranked like against yourself, not against like outside.
Exactly. Instead of the whole equation being something that is coming at us from the outside, we're taking initiative. We're repositioning ourselves in this model in a way that we're going to be happier about and more successful about. And then maybe the prompts are the most deadly part, because like I said before, most of the prompts we're dealing with are prompts that are being given to us from the outside in. So for example, when you're a young kid, your mom said, go practice, right? She was responsible for setting the prompt. When you are, when you're older, your teacher says, well, you have to learn this by so-and-so week, go learn it. They set the prompt, right? And that idea that we become the owners of the prompt, we are the ones who are deciding when the prompt is going to happen. So let's say you set your recital date for October 14th and you need more time. If you take ownership of the prompt, you will just move the recital to a better date and then low MPA, right? But if the recital date or the jury date is something that's being imposed on you from the outside, you're now a victim of somebody else's behavioral model. You're now at their mercy. Do you see what I'm saying? Kind of, okay. Any questions about this?
I think I want to talk a little bit about deadlines, because as a musician, that feels like probably one of the most important, if not the most important prompt that musicians have.
Right.
When we're practicing, it's like really the main thing that keeps us moving forward in the project a lot of the time. And there's like your daily deadline where you're just like, okay, today I'm going to learn a page music, or I'm going to learn this line of this piece. And then there's the long-term deadline where, okay, I have the recital on October 15th. But I think my personal relationship with deadlines, and I think a lot of people, is that when you don't meet the goal of the deadline, like, oh, I didn't actually learn that whole page, or I didn't learn that line, and I didn't really learn it that well. And then it becomes really hard to sort of celebrate yourself in that instant, So I don't know, that I think I've gotten to a point where I'm like, okay, I came in, I showed up, and I did the best I could. I'm at least moving in the right direction, even though I didn't entirely meet my deadline goal.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe this will help. So very quickly, because I'm not sure that if Anne or I think Lily is there too, I'm not sure if you guys know about this terminology. So in the course, we talk a lot about growth mindset and fixed mindset. Growth mindset says, when we are learning a piece, it's going to be these small increments where we learn the notes, and we learn the bowings and the intonation and the tempo, and we see this slow progression until we get to the point that we learn the piece. And then even when we perform it, we know that's the first performance and the second performance, and by the 15th performance, maybe we get to where we wanted to go. But it's a slow progression of events that lead to growth, that lead to us achieving something. A fixed mindset says, well, Martha Argerich plays it at this tempo and that accurately, and I have to match that goal. And as long as I don't match that goal, I'm worth nothing. So we base our self-worth on, meeting this impossible ideal. I think what Steve is saying, let's see if I can say this right. If we apply growth and fixed mindsets to this model, what happens? A fixed mindset says the task that you are doing has to be difficult by definition, right? Because you're aiming at that A, you're aiming at the ideal thing. Are you with me? This is kind of, motivation is irrelevant to a fixed mindset. It doesn't matter if you want to do it or not want to do it. You need to get the A, right? You need to get this done. The prompt can be, I think, very sort of what word I'm going to say the word vicious. Like, you have to learn this, you have to memorize the concerto by next week. That's a fixed mindset prompt. That's an unrealistic prompt. Instead of, I know that the recital is in 3 months from now. How about if I learn, a third of it in a month, 2/3 and another third? So setting the prompts in a reasonable growth pattern rather than, by next week it has to be memorized. A growth mindset would say, I'm going to break down the task into really simple, manageable parts, knowing that it's going to take me a while to get to the point that I'm actually going to achieve the goal, but I accept that as part of the process. I'm motivated not by achieving the A or, playing it perfectly like Martha Argerich, but I'm motivated by the idea that I'm getting better and I'm learning something, no matter how long it takes. And I'm very flexible with the prompt. I'm still studying the prompt, but I'm very flexible with them. Okay, Steve, how am I doing here?
You're doing great.
Does that explain it, or?
Yes, it does. Now I think though, like when we're given an external deadline though, from like an employer or online, like you have to post something within a certain amount of time, I think the fixed mindset typically has a bit more prevalence. It wants to take hold of you more. So I think, like, how would you go about
yeah, I hope I'm answering this right, but if not, I love the question, so we can keep digging. Did I ever tell you guys about the football? How do you cross a football thing? Did we ever talk about this?
Yes.
No. With you. So the idea is that in order to cross a football field, we first have to cross half of it, right? And in order to cross half of it, we still need to cross a quarter of it. And before that, we need to cross an eighth of it and a 16th of it. And because there's infinity between 0 and 1, we're never going to cross the field. Are you with me with that logic? And I think that's still what you're talking about. You're saying, I need to cross the football field. And because that's such an impossible task, I'm not even sure how I'm going to start. And I think what Fogg says here, which I think is really brilliant, he says, all you have to do is take one step. And instead of looking on how far you are between that one step and the end of the football field, celebrate that you took one step and go like, yeah, I did the first measure of the piece. And then the following day, maybe you do 2 steps. And then the following day, you do 4 steps. And then the following day, you do 20 steps. And maybe you take a break and then maybe you continue. But this idea that you have to get to the other end of the football field immediately is just unreasonable. Does that answer it?
Yeah, for the most part.
So if you have a deadline where you have to produce something for online social media, you have to look, let's break that down. Is it easy or difficult to do? Keep your microphone open. Is it easy or difficult for you to do?
Difficult.
Why is it difficult?
Because I'm trying to produce something at a certain quality within a given amount of time. And usually that's a fixed amount of time that I don't really have the most control over.
So the first question, is there a way to make the task easier? Can you divide it into smaller chunks? Can you make it shorter? Is there any variability with the task itself?
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely break it up more, and that certainly makes it easier.
Okay, so that's step number 1. Step number 2 is to look at the motivation. Like, how motivated are you to complete this task?
Very motivated.
Very motivated. So it's not really a question of you finding more fuel to engage in the task, right?
Right.
And then the third part of it is looking at the prompts. What kind of prompts are you giving yourself in order for it to happen? So you have a very sort of fixed prompt at the end that it has to happen by a certain date, right?
Yeah.
Are there smaller prompts along the way to tell you, well, I have to accomplish 1/5 of it by this date and 2/5 by, and so on?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's It's a bit vague, but you know.
But there you go.
Right.
That's
right.
that's my point. Is
Okay.
And I think that's where I think this is why I stopped dead in my tracks when I read it, because he nailed me. I'm very committed to practicing and learning the programs that we have to play in 2 months, but there's not a single notification on my calendar that says that I have to go practice at a certain point, because I have to teach, I have to go to meetings, I have to, buy groceries, I have to take the dogs out. I'll practice when I practice. Guess what?
Doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
Yeah.
Now his point, let's argue the opposite side. He says, well, you just have to, let's say at the end of the last lesson in the day, you need to sit down and do a tiny behavior practice for 5 minutes and then clap loudly for yourself. And I think we all go like, dude, this is just ridiculous. Just stop. Just right. That's not going to get me where I need to go in a month and a half. So, hi, Jody. The point I'm trying to make is that clearly breaking everything into tiny amounts when you have a big project, probably not going to work. You need to break it to manageable parts. At the same time, if you're not doing something, if you're really sort of blocked and you can't even get there, doing the tiny steps is exactly what you need to do. And I can give you an example. I don't remember where exactly it was, but when I first read it, I was also sort of in a block with practicing. I didn't want to practice. I needed to practice. And the recipe that I created was, I'm going to, after I step into my office, I'm going to open the score and I'm going to finger one line. And I did it, and it actually started the ball rolling. And after I started doing that, it actually got me into, okay, let me just practice a little bit. I just needed help with that, just sitting down to the keyboard and making that what happens first when I walk in the studio. So again, was I motivated? I was very motivated to learn the program. Was it hard or easy to do? It was very difficult because the repertoire is difficult. I'm tired. I don't necessarily want to practice. So just do one line, get yourself, into the habit of doing it, and then see if it increases naturally. I think that's his basic premise. Any other observations? How many of you agree with me that there's a flaw with the way that we teach music according to this model? Yeah, Lauren, tell me.
Well, I think it has to do with what you were saying before, that like there's a lot of praise for, I guess, doing the bare minimum, when you put it like that. When like we should really be teaching like in a more holistic approach with like, the musicality and stuff like that. And that sometimes it's better to pick pieces that fall within like that middle range, if that's what you were talking about.
Yeah. For example, that recital program that I was talking about earlier, it had only difficult repertoire. So it wasn't hard to do. It was kind of impossible to do. And I loved the challenge. I was motivated by the challenge, but the fact it was that difficult made it didn't happen. How many of you agree with me that we are sort of in classical music, we're addicted to the challenge, that the harder it is, then the better it is, right? The faster you play, the better you are, the higher you, it's kind of insane. That's really not the point of art at all, right? And yet we're all addicted to it. If somebody goes on stage and play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, we're going to be like, really? That's your recital program? Like what? So let's just take this into the next step, and let's just take, a young child, let's say 10, 11 years old, they're playing, moderate repertoire, and we need to train them to go on stage and play a recital. What do we do? Stage number one, how difficult or easy should the piece be? Kim, what are you going to assign to them? They're going to play Rachmaninoff Third, or they're going to play Beethoven Sonata, they're going to play Twinkle Twinkle?
Remind me the age again.
Like 10, 11.
Okay, probably.
Not Rachmaninoff Third, right?
No, probably something far easier. I don't know, Twinkle Twinkle, or depending on like how old they are or their level, or maybe like If they're more advanced, maybe like a Chopin Mazurka or something.
Okay, great. So like a Chopin Mazurka, that's a great idea. How many of you have had your teachers assign something that was very difficult for you to play in one of those recitals when you were that age? Something you go like, ooh, is it just me?
My issue was the opposite. Like they
Okay.
try to do something too hard, and they would give me, like, I would pick something that's too hard, and then they would say, okay, you have to have like this done by this date, but like I would be missing all of the steps in the middle. Like,
Okay, so it was, yeah,
know
same
what
problem,
happened.
right? Yeah. Let me just take, so okay, and then how are we going to encourage that 10-year-old? What kind of motivation are we going to give them that it's actually good for them to go on stage and play? I mean, the normal motivation would be, we always have a Christmas concert, and so you should play on the Christmas concert. Is that good motivation or bad motivation? Why, Steve?
I mean, that's encouraging them out of fear, not out of love. I think a good prompt or a good motivation might be to, oh, we're gonna go out to your favorite diner after and get you your favorite meal, get maybe a cake, and I don't know, something like that.
So the reward, the literature is really split on whether rewards are a good thing or a bad thing. So I'm not going to, I think people are different. So for some people that's, okay, yeah, I'm going to go on stage because I'm going to get, a cheesecake at the end of it. And for some people, that's not good. So depending on the kid. But if you just look at they're playing their piece, they're playing their Chopin Mazurka. How can we create authentic motivation for them to want to go on stage and do it? Yeah, Kim.
I actually found that, like, for my younger students, I was just very honest with them. Like, I just told them for the recitals, a lot of them said that they were too scared to do it. But I just told them that, in not like a scary way, that there might be mistakes, there might be, like, it might not be easy, but if you do it the first time, then the next time it will be easier. And all of them did it. Like, all of them performed, and they've performed like 3 times now. And the first time they were like, no, we're not doing it. So I think after just being honest with them and telling them it's going to be okay, even if something bad happens, that is enough.
Great. How about, so I'm going to say 2 things. One, I think it's critical that the piece that they're playing is something that they enjoy playing. That makes all the difference in the world. Because if they enjoy the Chopin Mazurka and they like playing it, then the joy of playing it is something that you can tap into and go like, you love this piece, right? Tell me what parts of it do you like? And then they get to show you, like, aren't you glad we're going to play this and grandma is going to be there? She hears like this beautiful piece. They're like, yeah, I'm very excited. So you can, I'm saying manipulate is the wrong word, but you can highlight the authentic joy of playing that specific piece and amp it up so they feel more motivated. And then in terms of, I think the prompts are problematic here just because the concert is the concert. We can't really do anything about it. So what I want to talk to you about is run-throughs, and why run-throughs, according to this model, are really are really important. Like Kim's just said, the first time you play on stage, it's going to be very difficult, right? But with every repetition, with every public performance of the piece, the task becomes easier to do. So when you play it for your friend in the studio, and then you play it for 3 friends, and then you play it in area, and then you play it for 20 people, and then you play it at Carnegie Hall, there is a slow progression of the task being repeated, and instead of increasing in difficulty, it actually decreases in difficulty because you got used to doing it. You see what I'm saying? And therefore, it becomes a lot easier to do. So there are 2 things. The pressure is rising, but your habit of playing the thing is, making it easier to do, and then it happens more naturally. Yeah, kind of. Okay. Okay, so to sum up, like what kind of recipes can we adopt to help us with our, particular issues? So I guess let's start with me. My particular issue is that I want to practice, but I don't get to practice. So according to this model, instead of the task is, I feel like the task needs to be, I need to go into the practice room and play every day for 3 hours. Easy or hard? Very hard. I don't have 3 hours during the day to practice. So let's make it smaller. 1 hour to practice. Great. Am I motivated to do it? Yes, I'm very motivated to do it because I love the pieces that we're preparing. So that's okay. The prompt, there are 2 concerts coming up, so they're there. So what can I play with here? I think what I need to play with is finding that hour in my schedule and say something like, after I'm done teaching the student and I have an hour free, I'm going to sit down and practice. And sort of just, the change that I made was to decrease it from 3 hours to 1 hour, and now it fits in my schedule. There are more chances it will happen. Who wants to play this game with me? Who has a habit that they want to incorporate, and we can do it with this model?
I'll be a guinea pig.
Oh, Ezra.
Okay, so my set is easy to run through, but my motivation is low because it's easy. And I think that
Ooh.
like goes back to what you're saying, like classical musicians, and even like, I guess like the not modern, but like pop people are always competitive about like what's new and like what sounds good. So whenever I'm running through the set, I mean, what I do is just like play a backing track and I like play on my guitar to it. But I get bored and I'm like, I need to do something about like my setup. Like I need modules or something to like, so I can control some more sounds other than just my direct instrument.
Great. So do you feel that the prompt is there? You're going to have to play the set, right?
Yeah.
And what you want to play with is challenging yourself. I mean, I guess in both motivation and ability. So one part is to make the actual set a little bit more challenging to play. Can you add another song? Can you add, like you're saying, add the consoles there to play with the sounds? Is that what's going to solve it?
See, I think so, but I feel like if I add too much, then I won't be able to focus on my singing. I won't be able to focus on my instrument. So I think there's like a line there that I'm kind of dancing around where I want something a little more challenging or a little more interactive on stage, but not so much that it takes away from what is already being done easily.
So the one thing that he has in the book that I have not opened is he talks about very specific exercise in brainstorming, how to deal with exactly what you're talking about. So I highly recommend you get the book and you look at what he says. It's very detailed and it's very involved. And again, I think that for most of us can come up with ideas very quickly. We don't need, but I think in your case, it probably will be helpful to do the entire brainstorming exercise.
Cool.
And then in terms of motivation, is there anything else that you can play with? How about, the audience is hearing it for the first time. So I'm going to get a lot of energy just from them listening to it for the first time.
Yeah, I think it is a lot of motivation to, I mean, even new audiences and just old audiences, it motivates me when I know they've heard like the very first time I played, and like I practice it now and I know it really well. So now they're like, oh wow, it's nice to like grow with them. And
Right.
Yeah.
And then again, I think I would ask the question, like, why does it have to be hard?
Yeah.
It's really right. It's a bit of a conundrum. Like, why are we so addicted to something being challenging and outside of our comfort zone to be to feel that we've we earned our right to be there, right? Anybody else wants to jump in? I really want to try and tie this to something you actually are dealing with right now, so it the message lands. Lauren, anything you're working on that this could help you with?
Can someone else go first just so I could see?
Sure. Yeah, I'm going to actually stop the share just so we can look each other in the eye. Hi. Hello.
Can I go?
Yeah, go.
I feel like I don't have enough like prompts, and that's my problem because like last year or like the last academic year, I had so many, and then they just like all disappeared, and I sort of, I don't know, I don't think I lost motivation. I just think the motivation had like nowhere to go.
I want to stop you for a second because I think it was definitely on my notes to address this, but most people refer to it, what happens after college is that, you know, that cliff that you get, you know, I'm done with school, go fly, live your life, and they're like, yay, I'm so excited, and they're like, oh. Why? Because we from age 3 or 2 or whatever, we're in this system that keeps telling us what to do, where to show up, what's the homework, how are we going to get to the task. There's constantly, we're being managed by external prompt givers to do things. And then lo and behold, we get to the point that we can set our own project. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do this. Can somebody please, hey Jody, can somebody please, Jody doesn't know how to do this. It's scary as shit. And then you tell yourself, what's wrong with me? There's something wrong with my, no, there's nothing wrong with you. We just all got used to having other people set our prompts. So end of speech. So do you feel like after hearing this, you feel more comfortable saying, well, I guess I need XYZ as prompts. I need practice calendar. I need to set mini goals to get me to where I need to go.
My problem was that my prompts were like huge. Like it would be like an audition that was due, like the recordings were due September 18th or something. And I don't know, this made me realize that I can just like set my own prompts and own like little smaller goals. Like just get a section of music done by like next week or something. And it doesn't even have to be perfect. Just like,
Right.
you know, like get scales and thirds done by next week.
Fantastic. And this is why I think the practice protocol is also so important, because in the practice, the practice list and the practice protocol, because the practice list will say, I need the scales and I need the pieces and I need the this and I need the that. And you can see all of them. And the practice protocol gives you like the first 3 steps of what do I need to do? I need to put the bowings in. I need to do the fingerings. I need to do some technical work. I need to play it slowly. I need have those habits in place, so you're not sitting there thinking, well, how the heck am I going to learn this? Like, it's right. So I think the answer for you is more prompts, more smaller prompts, and having those lists of the tasks so you can see like what it actually is that you're being challenged with and how you can divide it into manageable bits. Yeah.
I just started doing that this year. Like I'd never done that before. I don't know why. I was too lazy.
Because now you need to. I mean, I know
Yeah.
I repeat the story again and again. I didn't need to learn any of this till shuffle. Shuffle, because there were 30 pieces, I was forced, like, you have to organize your time. There is no, you know, carte blanche of you're going to practice for 24 hours. You have to practice with the focused mindset of what needs to get done, because you only have 2 hours to practice 30 pieces. I mean, we all meet that moment when we have to meet that moment, and yours is now. So, hey, welcome to the club. Kim, can I help you with something? A tiny habit that will change your life.
Well, I think after looking at the model, like I know what my problem is. The problem is that I have literally 0 prompts. Like I have a lot of motivation to learn new things and like go and play, but I have 0 prompts because I don't have any need to, like, I'm not a student anymore. I don't have any recitals. I don't have lessons. So maybe I need to figure out like some performances that I could do and then like have smaller prompts to lead up to those. But I think right now the problem is I just have no prompts.
Yeah. I was amazed to discover that I'm the same way. And again, I think the reason is because for the most part, the prompts are being dictated even as adults. So I have, 9 students, and I have 4 chamber groups, and I have rehearsals with Dr. Farney in my schedule, and I have, responsibilities. So all of those prompts are already in there. So to add even more prompts on top of it seems like, dude, just, breathe. And at the same time, those are the most important prompts. Those are the prompts that nobody else is, telling me to do, right? So yeah, I really think that that's his contribution to society, is telling us that the prompts are not just notifications, they're actually the match that lights the fire of action and making us do things. Yeah, good one. And anything?
I think I have a couple of things that I can see my problems out of many things.
Yeah.
I don't know what this will be under which word, but I mean, one is not having enough time to do many things. Like
Right.
I'm a full-time mom, I have teaching public school, teaching university, I so much going on. And so that's one. But then even the prompt approaches me having a lack of confidence in myself, thinking, even if I could play this in my practice room, when I go on a stage, the fear of it is going to be good enough. It's going to be just like you say, it's going to be fast enough.
Right.
Flash enough.
Right.
And I'm going to go there, I'm going to make a full, like full of myself. And then do I want to do it? So it's like a mix with so many things, and that makes me not wanting to take more prompt. But then I have already, like you have a full schedule. It's crazy. And I guess, I could see that there's a way that I can balance my life out so I can practice, but this is all like mixture of fear. So
Yeah.
I don't really want to add one more on already full prompt. I don't know how to explain this.
So,
yeah.
I mean, I have multiple things that are running through my head that I want to tell. So let's start with the most obvious, which is, I think your tiny habit or tiny recipe would be something like, after, I finish doing the dishes or blah, 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 or I have like 5 minutes. After I do that, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to play for 5 minutes. And whatever, just the Chopin mazurka, I think, works here. I'm just going to learn that one line. And when I'm finishing with that one line, I'm going to go like, thumbs up. You choose, like tap, whatever, smiley face, whichever way works for you. And that's your tiny habit.
That's what I need.
Yeah, you need definitely,
yeah.
we all need, I know it sounds trivial to say we need the positive encouragement, but we need to, in order to integrate this behavior, we need to be happy about it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you do that for a week, and within a week you have like 2 pages of this mazurka learned, right? And then maybe it becomes 10 minutes, and maybe within a month you actually have it and you're playing it. Then you're going to go into the next level, which is the new habit is, how do I play this for other people? So what would be the tiny habit? The tiny habit would be, after we're done with dinner, I'm going to play just the first line for my kids. Right? And then the next stage would be, maybe I'm going to play the first page for them. And maybe I'm going to play the whole thing. And then maybe I'm going to play it for another friend. And it's incrementally, it's not about you going on stage in Rausch and playing it for the entire faculty, because that's the thing we all dread. But it's going to be about, I'm learning this very, very gradually, very, very slowly. So at any given point, I'm totally within my element. The task stays relatively simple. I'm motivated to do it because I love the music. And the prompt, I'm setting the prompt when I'm ready for it, and not something that is being imposed to me from the outside. How does that sound?
Sounds good. I will start with encouraging myself.
Great.
Thank you.
Lauren, your turn.
So let me think for a second. I don't know if I really have any problems at this
Okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be a problem. It could be something like, I mean, mine was I was trying to drink more water. So I would say to myself, the tiny habit would be when I'm finished with a meal, I will just down a glass of water. So at least I got 3 more glasses of water than I normally would.
Yeah.
Um,
Let me think. Because I know there's definitely things. I just like I can't think of one like at the moment. I guess I don't know. I'm sorry.
that's okay. Don't worry about it. Like if you can think of something you want to send me later, that's you can do that. Okay, how did I do, guys? Did you learn something from this? Yeah, I get like the shine part. I really think that what he's saying in this book is incredibly helpful for musicians. I think we are addicted to the difficulty of things. I think that we are not good at setting our own prompts. I think that motivation wavers between the love for music and the fear of being ranked low. And we really need to work hard at like, no, it's really not about the ranking. It's I really love Rachmaninoff third. I love that Chopin mazurka, and I love doing the set, and I love playing thirds and scales. I love all of this stuff because I'm a musician and music makes me happy. Work with that motivation. Break down the task into smaller sections so we're not overwhelmed by the difficulty of the task, and really make putting prompts part of the preparation, not just something that when I have time I will do it, but put it in your schedule, put it in your calendar, put reminders, do some sort of spreadsheet where you see the whole thing evolving gradually, and then try this with the tiny recipe. Just here's what I learned from this lecture. I'm just going to try one small thing. After I go to the practice room, I'm going to sight read a line, give myself thumbs up, and see if just the loop becomes something that becomes a habit. It becomes something that is easy for you to do, and it's a method that you can apply to other things. Okay. I'm not going to do this next week because I'm going to go judge a competition, but I'm going to do this in 2 weeks. Okay. And I think what we're going to talk about is the emotional analysis thing. I think that's something I want to do a presentation on. And if you have questions, of course, you can message me, email me. And I really enjoy this. I hope you enjoyed it too. It's great seeing everybody's smiling faces. Jody's not smiling. Jody, smile. Okay. Bye, guys. Thank you for joining me. I'll send you the
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.